Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm sharing with you some high-end DIYs that are really easy to do. So the first thing I did was go to the thrift store and I found a basket I could use for this project. I started by removing the inner burlap lining, and I'm going to take the basket part outside and spray paint it with 2 coats of a flat black spray paint. I'm also going to remove this red ribbon around the edge, and then I'll place the burlap back into the sack. I'm gonna come back in with my own ribbon I picked up from Hobby Lobby and just hot glue that around the edges. Next, I wanted to create a sign, so I grabbed some of the labels from Dollar Tree. I'm going to use one of their chalk markers to write out Snowballs 10 cents. Then I'll just tie the edges where my ribbon meet, and then tie my label sign onto the front. Now, a trick to not have to put as many ornaments or filler in is to start by putting Walmart or Dollar Tree sacks at the base. Next, I'm going to put in some white ornaments that I had on hand, as well as some snowballs that I bought in the Target dollar spot. Now, you could still see the bags underneath a little bit, so I'm going to come in with the greenery just to cover that up. And here's a look at how the basket turned out. I found this really cute sleigh in the Target dollar spot for $5. Love the look of it, but I wanted to update it a little bit. So the base where it's red, I'm gonna paint that with 2 coats of Waverly white chalk paint. Now for the sides, I'm just going to sand down any rough edges, and then I'm going to come in with a black paint and distress the edges a little bit. I'll wipe off any excess paint with a paper towel. I styled this piece with some packages I wrapped up and added in some pine cones. I think pine cones make a great filler. Let me show you how you can style your white pictures around your house for Christmas. You want to just grab some greenery. I like grabbing it at Dollar Tree, Hobby Lobby, Walmart, and I'm just going to put some at the top. I'm going to stuff some of my pictures with Walmart sacks, and then I'll just put in some holiday greenery, maybe add in 2 different variations to give it a little bit of texture, but you can put these on top of your hutch, sitting out on a shelf. They're very classy and high-end, and they take just a few minutes to do.
Making our Christmas memories. I've been working so much lately, I can barely find it.
So next I'm gonna make a sign. So I grabbed a piece of wood from my garage and I'm gonna start by painting it with 2 coats of Crimson by Waverly.
This is my favorite holiday. It's a chance to start over new. Cause I missed you, so I'm letting go of everything but you.
Next, I'm going to distress the edges by sanding them with some sandpaper I had.
Baby, this year it's just gonna be you and me. Hang by the fire and chill.
Next, I created a sign on my Cricut with some silver vinyl, and I'm just going to transfer it to this scrap piece of wood.
And I've been longing to hold you close. Forget about everyone else. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, oh, la, 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 oh, oh.
Next up, I grabbed a vase from the thrift store and I want to add some texture to it. So I grabbed some plaster of Paris. I'll link to it down in the description box, and I'm also going to mix that with some white paint.
I've been hanging marbles in the tree, and I've lit my house with.
You want the consistency to be thick, but you also want to be able to still paint it on. Next, I'm going to use a foam brush to paint it on my entire vase.
We'll be singing all the melodies until the sun comes up. These are the good times.
Next, I'm going to spray paint them in a silver color. That's going to give me that nice winter look that I'm going for. I also found this set of stems at the thrift store. I didn't even undo the bundle. I just kept them together as a bundle.
Christmas memories, oh, and I've been longing to hold you close. Forget about everyone else. Isn't this
And I'll just display them in my white vase. If you're as excited for the holidays as I am, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I post new videos on Mondays and Thursdays. You may be wondering about the vase that I have next to the tall one I just created. This is a crock that I picked up from the thrift store, and I'm just going to add some sprigs in there. I believe that I picked these up at Michael's. They're just very simple. I love using simple greenery like this around the holidays because I can use it year after year, and if I want to add a color in, I can do that as well, but it's just a really great base to have. Next, I grabbed a sweater from the thrift store, and I'm going to be using this sweater to create a stocking. So I started by drawing a template just on a scrap piece of poster board that I had on hand, and I'm going to cut out my template, adding about a 1/2 inch around the edge for sewing. Next, I'm going to decide what area of my sweater I want to cut, trace my template on it, and then I'm going to cut out my sweater. Now I need to create 2 pieces so that I have a front and back to my stockings. So I'll just do the same thing on the back, trace my template and cut it out. Next, I'm going to pin it so that the right sides are together. Then I'll go in with my sewing machine and just sew a simple stitch around the edge. Now don't worry if it's not perfect. These sweaters are supposed to have a little bit of character to them. Next, I'm going to turn it right side out. Then I cut off the top portion. And I put it inside of my sweater so that the right sides were together. Now, this step was probably a little too far. I honestly could have just folded it over and it would have been fine, but I wanted the right side to be sticking out. So I just sewed that so that when I fold it over, the right side of the stocking will be showing. So you want to make sure that you create some sort of handle to hang your stocking from. I just grabbed a piece of ribbon and stitched that in place. And here's a look at how this inexpensive sweater stocking from the thrift store turned out. All right, so I found these Santa sacks a year or so ago on clearance at Walmart. I picked them up and didn't know what I was going to do with them, but I thought they would make really cute decorations around my Christmas tree. So there's an area on it where you can add a name to it. So I wanted to create a name at the bottom. So I'm going to be using Dollar Tree letters to create my stencil and just spell out names. Next, I'm going to be going in with a red acrylic paint, and I'm just going to stipple in the paint. Now you can see that I put a piece of paper in between the burlap and the back side. Because burlap is see-through, it would show through to the other side. So make sure you put something in if you're going to be painting on burlap. Next, I just grabbed a big pillow that I had on hand, and I'm going to be placing it inside of this burlap sack. I wanted to create kind of like Santa's presents with these. And then just pull the top together and you can tie it with any ribbon you have on hand. This is ribbon that I picked up from Walmart. I really like getting some of my Christmas ribbon from Walmart. I think they have a great selection and good prices. So this next item is another clearance find that I had. I bought this tag on clearance at Hobby Lobby for probably a couple of dollars after Christmas, and I wanted to create a sign. So I'm going to be using a dark espresso stain, and I'll just put it on with my foam brush, and then I will take it off with a paper towel. Next, I went in with my Cricut and I created a sign on vinyl paper that I already had on hand. I'm gonna transfer this sign onto my tag. If you guys are enjoying this video, I would love for you to give me a thumbs up by just hitting that like button. It really helps me in the YouTube algorithm. And here's a look at how it turned out. Next up, I'm gonna use a black tray that I had on hand. I had purchased it at the thrift store and just had it for a while. I'm gonna paint it with 2 coats of Waverly white chalk paint, and then I'm gonna sand it off to distress around the edges. I wanted to show you an easy way to make a centerpiece, so I'm gonna be using some white candles that I had from IKEA. You can also grab candles at Walmart like this, but I find that IKEA has some of the best prices when it comes to candles. Next, I'm going to be filling in with some silver ornaments I picked up at Dollar Tree. I love these little small ornaments. They make perfect accessories for arrangements like this. Next, I added a candle snuffer that I picked up at Dollar Tree. And here's a look at how it turned out displayed on my dresser. This next Christmas basket was a container that I picked up at the thrift store, not really sure what I was going to do with it. I removed the chain and I spray painted it with 2 coats of a matte white spray paint. Next, I wanted to bring out some of the detail that was in the piece. So I wasn't really sure about how I wanted to do this. So at first I added some dark wax. That didn't really give me the look I was going for. Then I went in with some gray paint, and that kind of did the trick to bring out the color that I was going for, but it was a little dark. So I went back in with some white in the end. That's the fun part about paint. You can always layer colors to get that desired effect that you're going for. So don't be afraid to just paint it and take a step back, look at it, and see if you need to add more. I'm gonna add some black twine to the top, and then I'll string on some beads along the top as well. Then I will add beads to that string. I'll tie it off to the other side. Now I did come in and paint that string white just so you couldn't see it. You could put anything in here. You could put greenery. I also think it would be great for Christmas cards. So this next project is a lot of fun. You're going to need a mason jar or any sort of jar. You're also going to need a piece of scrapbook paper. If you can find one in a holiday print, it's even better. And I'm also going to be using an ornament from Dollar Tree. So I started by wrapping my paper around because I wanted to create an opening with a Christmas tree. So I'm marking where the end of my paper is, and I'm gonna cut it so it goes all the way around. I had to add a little bit of additional paper because the 12 by 12 paper doesn't go all the way around. Next, I'm going to create a Christmas tree template, cut that out, and add it to my paper. Once I trace that, I'll cut out the template. Then I'm going to hot glue my paper around the edge. I wrap some twine around the top just to kind of finish off the piece and tie it. And then I took the greenery off that ornament and I'll hot glue that to the top. Now to fill this, I'm just gonna add in a candle from Dollar Tree, and I think it adds so much to any Christmas centerpiece. So I had this plaque that I purchased at the thrift store, but you can get something similar to this at Michael's. I'm gonna paint it with 2 coats of a white paint that I mixed in some cream and gray to it as well. I'm gonna sand down the edges. Next, I found this stencil at Dollar Tree, so I'm gonna add that to the base. I'm gonna use the crimson color to fill in this stencil. Next, I'm going to add that same ribbon I was telling you guys about earlier from Walmart, and I'll just hot glue it to the back. And I'll wrap some twine around the front. Whenever I'm doing something like this, I just kind of add elements until I like the way it looks. I thought it needed a little something, so I found a snowflake from Dollar Tree. But really, I don't know how things are going to turn out until they're done. But this is how this sign turned out. Whenever you go to the thrift store, you want to keep your eyes out for the different prints. I have found so many great prints, and this winter print was one that I found and was so excited about. I think I spent like 50 cents on it. Now, the frame of it is just a little beaten up, and so I wanted to update the frame so it would look nice with my holiday decor. I'm just gonna tape off the glass portion, and then I'm gonna paint it with 2 coats of Waverly White chalk paint. I'm gonna do a wet distressing technique on it where I'm just pulling off paint with a wet paper towel. I mean, for 50 cents, it totally updated this picture. So I found this sheet music at my local thrift store, and I'm gonna use it to create a garland that's gonna be perfect for the holidays. I created a banner template out of one of the sheets of music, and I'm just going to replicate that by tracing it onto the other music notes. Next, I'm gonna pull off a long piece of twine and cut it off at the end. I prefer to make it longer versus shorter, so I always make it a little bit too long. I'm gonna find the center portion of my twine, fold the paper over, and hot glue it in the center. I'll continue by adding additional sheets of music. And here's a look at how this simple banner turned out. I was so excited when I found this log holder at my local thrift store. I thought this is perfect. I was so excited about it. It just looked very winter and Christmassy, and I knew I had to pick it up. Now, it was a little beat up, so I did come in and clean it the best that I could. I added some white paint and then pulled off any excess so there wasn't too much on. I styled it with some logs that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. Next up, I'm going to do a little DIY with these spindles. I found these at a garage sale and just thought they were so cool, so cute, and I couldn't pass them up. I didn't know what I was gonna do with them at the time, but I knew I could figure out something. What I ended up doing was actually cutting them in half. I came in with some white paint on the edges just to really bring out the detail. You can see that I'm wiping the paint off because I don't want the paint to be too overpowering in any way. Next, I'm going to kind of treat these like they're a set of logs. So I'm going to line them up together, and then I'm going to wrap them with some twine. Once I have the twine in place, I'll cover that up with some ribbon. And I'm going to add in some greenery just to make it look a little bit more festive. And then I'll also add in a bow. And here's a look at how it turned out. Let me know in the comments what your favorite project was, and I'll talk to you guys in our next one.